Now I'd first like to introduce the Interim Dean of the Villanova School of Business, Dr. Kevin Clark.
Well, this event is not about me. I'll be quite brief, but many of you know me. I've been here at Villanova for about over 10 years in the management area. Some of you may have had me for the strategic management course if we go way back. I met at least one prior student earlier. This is quite gratifying to see. I mean, we've got standing room only, maybe not even standing room only crowd. The idea of events like this, as you know, is that they are critical for us as we attempt to connect theory, the things you talk about in class, to practice, the application of that theory. We have the series like this that are associated with departments or centers or other speaker series, and it's really important that you young people come and hear from these executives to get a comprehensive view of what's out there in the world that you'll be entering after you matriculate through our program. So it's very gratifying for me to see you come here. I spent a little bit of time earlier today with Chris Gheysens, our speaker, talking about his career path, and we discovered we had some things in common. I went an academic path, but in terms of our lives. And I think it's very important as you come to these events to learn not only about an industry or a skill set or some other information that's kind of a more pragmatic, proximal value to you, but also that you take great care to start to form in your minds an openness and a comprehensive view of what the career options really are out there. I know many of you think about Big Four accounting firms and banks, and those are great places to start a career. But in point of fact, as demonstrated by the diversity of career paths that we bring through the business school for you to interact with, think very broadly, because there are great careers in corporate. Many of these folks, and I think Chris has this story, started in a Big Four accounting firm, but just start to think very broadly about where you might go with the skill sets and experiences that you have here at VSB. So in this particular case, we're talking about business analytics, data analytics, and this is therefore associated with our Center for Business Analytics. We have Matt Liberatore, who's our Connolly Chair in Management in that area. He will speak in just a moment. But I want to make one point about this area of data analytics that may be obvious to many of you, but if not, after this session will be obvious. We have these speakers come in, we have execs and other influential managers from a variety of sectors, both for-profit, non-profit, governmental, come to the business school, come through, interact with the faculty and with folks like myself. And I will tell you, over the last 2 or 3 years, I've not had anybody that's been successful in their career not come in here and talk about data analytics or business analytics very directly. Whether they use that term or not is less important. But it's very apparent that this is a skill set and approach and understanding that informs managerial decision-making in ways that 10 years ago, 15 years ago was not the case. And so one of the decisions that we've made at the leadership level of the Villanova School of Business is that we need to have a very concerted and serious approach to building skill sets in our students in this critical area. So many of you will know this, some of you will not. We have made the decision to change our quantitative core for our undergraduate program, and the capstone of that is a required business analytics course in the sophomore year that will be available to the current freshmen as they progress through their program. We are currently hiring faculty. We have some expertise in the center, but we are currently putting a large investment into faculty, going out and finding the best folks in this emerging area, and we're very serious about building for all of our students this capability. One of the things you need to do if you're a highly ranked school, whether you're top 10 or top 20 or whatever, if you're in that group of fine schools, you need to consistently make the case for why you belong. And for us, we've done a lot of things around integration, we've done a lot of things around service learning and study abroad and other valuable skill sets and experiences. For us, this data analytics made perfect sense as another piece of the Villanova gestalt, if you will, of capabilities and skill sets. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Matt Liberatore. He's going to talk a little bit about our guest speaker, and I just want to again welcome all of you and display to you how gratified we are that everyone found time on a sunny Friday afternoon to join us. So welcome, Matt. Thanks,
Good afternoon, everyone, and boy, standing room only, huh? This is the way I'd like to see it. I really appreciate all of you coming, and sorry we don't have enough seats, but I think it'll be worth the wait for you. We are really pleased today to have as our fall analytics guest lecturer, Mr. Chris Gheysens from Wawa Incorporated. Chris is currently the Chief Financial and Administrative Officer and has just been anointed as the future CEO and President of Wawa. His primary current responsibilities include the financial, legal, and human resource departments. Chris became the CFO in Wawa in January of 2006 and has worked for Wawa for over 13 years, previously holding positions as Director of Planning and Analysis, hence the link to analytics, and Retail Accounting Manager. Prior to joining Wawa, Chris worked in the audit practice at Deloitte & Touche in Philadelphia. During his 4 years with Deloitte, he discussed and focused primarily on the retail industry, serving clients such as Reading China and Glass, the Wall of Music, Pep Boys, and of course, Wawa. Chris is an alum whom we're very proud of at Villanova, class of 1993, whoops.
I looked that old.
I hope big CEO doesn't do that to you either. But, sorry, 93, he's a young guy. To his credit, he attained his master's degree from that other school in the main line, St. Joseph's University, whom we have some representatives here, and is also a certified public accountant in New Jersey. Chris is a member of the Board of Directors and Finance Committee for the Southeastern Pennsylvania chapter of the American Red Cross. And without further ado, please give a warm Villanova welcome to Chris Gheysens.
All right, thank you. Great to be here. I'm sorry we don't have a bigger room, but thank you for the accommodations. We have some Wawa folks here, so we're going to audit your time cards next week and make sure this was vacation time. But thank you for the nice, although I am only 40, not 60, so the nice opening. I have a bunch to share with you. There are a lot of people here. So I also understand some of you are mandatory. You had a choice this morning between coming here and a 500-word essay. Where are those folks at? There's one. You told me you had 30 in your class, so the other 29
They're all free.
are doing the essay. That was actually so I have 4 hours of presentation material. It was a good choice, don't worry. No, thanks for being here. I have a lot to go through. I think before I start, let me say thank you to the School of Business, to Dean Clark, to Matt Liberator. What's happening here as a 93 grad and to continue to see the growth is amazing. Certainly proud to have that certificate, that Villanova University accounting certificate on my wall, and every year that goes by, you can see just how more important and valuable that becomes, and that is a big part of my personal success, frankly. So thank you very much for the continued work, and it's certainly my vote of confidence as you're building this program and going forward. This program obviously didn't exist when I was here. It's a pretty amazing program. I said in an earlier meeting that if I didn't go, I'm on the accounting advisory board, so if this choice was here back 20 years ago, I might have taken a different route. So it's very exciting stuff, and I think it's a big part of what makes Wawa successful, and a lot of passion that I have around it as well. So let's dig in, share a couple things with you. Discussion, how we're going to go about this. I got to talk Wawa. I'm sure most of you here to hear about Wawa, right? And we'll talk about a little bit of history. It's a long history, some pretty interesting facts around that. If I try not to, any presentation I've ever done, at the end, it's all about Wawa. So I'll try to get some of that out of the way. We'll have time for questions. And then set up the framework for analytics. And the journey I want to bring you on is really building the infrastructure first. People, one of the most important parts, tools, data, how we went about that at Wawa. Because I'm going to warn you right now, we're not perfect at this. We're still on a journey ourselves. And that journey, interestingly enough, as I look at the Wawa folks here, there's finance folks, there's analysts here, and then there's IT folks. And what's the catch? This is a cross-functional effort. This just doesn't reside in finance. And as somebody from computer science who was in the earlier lunch said, that's the backbone. The enabler are the systems and the data and the information that you have to manage to become analytical. So we'll hear about that. And around driving performance, I'm going to talk to you really about examples. Wawa, how have we used analytics to improve the bottom line, change the business, build the brand in some cases, et cetera. And then a few things if we have time. So I'm going to try and be certainly shorter than 4 hours, a little bit. All right, Wawa. Wawa goes back to 1803. It's over a 200-year-old company. We actually started in New Jersey, in Millville, southern New Jersey, Cumberland County. Millville Manufacturing Company is an iron foundry. Blast furnace, we're making anything from cannonballs to fire hydrants. As a matter of fact, if you still go through the country, New Orleans and some other Midwestern cities, you'll see R.D. Wood, Richard Davis Wood, the founder, the family founder of the company, imprinted on some of the old fire hydrants still. Times changed. In 1865, it became a textile company, baby diapers, all kinds of other stuff, still located in Millville. A couple interesting things, actually even before 65. In 65, we incorporated in the state of New Jersey. We still operate today under those same company charter articles of incorporation in New Jersey. The other thing, a little earlier than 65, or you could challenge me on my history, there was, at that point in time, a wholesale business that actually stretched out pretty far to the Midwest at that point in U.S. history. That was far west. And a little-known lawyer at the time in Springfield, Illinois, actually collected debts on our behalf, and his name was Abraham Lincoln. So it gives you a little context about how far back. And that's not a joke. It's actually someone in the family has letters written from him and signed. So 1902, dairy. If you've been down Route 1 in just south of Media, the dairy still exists. The dairy business formed. The dairy was built in the 20s. Why the dairy business? That was the summer home of the family. The summer home, they decided to get into, what hobby do you have?
Playing sports.
Playing sports. They decided to bring cows over from England. That was your second favorite hobby. And bringing Guernsey cows over, they were good for producing milk. That led to a dairy. There's a big strategic plan behind it. The dairy was formed, and throughout really the early 20s through the 50s, had a very successful home delivery milk business, first certified milk in the country, and was very successful. The company was growing. By the time though the 50s came around, supermarkets emerged, home delivery started to go by the wayside, and that business started to dry up. So a little story here. We always get, where'd you get Wawa from? I heard a story again earlier today of someone who wasn't from the area came in and said, Wawa, what's Wawa? We get that all the time. If you're in marketing, you're not going to use Wawa as one of your best marketing ploys and names if you were building a company from scratch. It works for us. So about 12 years ago, was in accounting, and I remember I was doing an interview for what was at that time an accounting information systems analyst. Good resume I had in front of me, invited the person in. They were a few years out of school, had some relative experience. In the interview, sitting there one-on-one, realized pretty quickly that the individual just didn't live up to the resume, say it that way. And so went through a little of the motions in the interview, stopped the interview, and did the obligatory, so do you have any questions for me? And he sort of leans back in his chair and he looks across, he goes, yeah. He goes, what's up with the duck? The interview had gone well, he might have been in trouble, but I did not know what he was talking about. My mind started going a mile a minute. Is duck some accounting or IT acronym? Literally. And so he saw my face and I was perplexed, and I just looked, I don't know what you mean. And he goes, yeah, the bird on your sign. I said, oh, okay. He didn't get the job. But that talks a little to the bird on the sign. It's a goose. And the goose is really, the Wawa term comes from goose. The Native Americans that were indigenous to the Wawa area at the time, Wawa was their term for Canadian goose in flight. And that's where it was adopted from. So it's not a duck. So what happened in the early 60s? As I was saying, getting back to the train of thought, the supermarkets were emerging. The dairy home delivery business was drying up. literally. And the company at that time needed to take a bold change in a different direction. The founder, still a Wood family member, went out to the Midwest and saw a business that was a concept that would have later evolved to what we know as convenience stores that he really took to. He worked there, he became friendly with the owners, he brought back that idea here. And on April 16th, 1964, after long efforts of convincing the board and shareholders, we opened up our first store. So we've been in business, in the convenience business, for 47 years. Back then, is true what's really today. It was about people. The company's always been about people and our culture of valuing people. At the customer level, it's always been a relentless focus on the customer. There were fresh produce, dairy, obviously, and things that you wouldn't find in what was considered a convenience store back then, which differentiated us then, and I would say differentiates us now. So 47 years later in this business, we've done quite a bit. As you can see from a few of the pictures up there, we have 590 stores. We've probably built, if I could guess, 1,200. But we netted out at about 600, 590 at this point, and you're always evolving. We did not build gas stores at first. We built gas stores in the last 15, 16 years. 300 of the 590 are fuel stores, the larger prototype stores. You hear people call them super Wawas. We don't. And have 17,000 associates. That's our term for employee, but they're associates to us that work across 5 states. So we've grown just a little bit, and I'd say really the theme there has been the culture of the company, but also it's been focused on change over time. You have to embrace change. You have to know what the customer needs, anticipate those needs, and grow. One of the other needs that we have is we like to grow. We aren't, you'll hear in a little bit, we're not a public company, as you probably know. But at the same time, growth provides opportunities for shareholders, but more importantly for the people you work alongside. And that's important to us. So we continue to grow. We'll continue to grow in the 5 states that we operate in now, which is the Mid-Atlantic region. We're making a push into northern New Jersey. Just this morning we approved a whole bunch of new sites for northern New Jersey and continue to make that push. So we're Philadelphia and the region, Delaware Valley, homegrown, and it's really important to us. It's where we have our most success. Our corporate headquarters is located in Delaware County and always will. However, growth sometimes comes at a price. We have 590 stores within roughly 300 miles of each other, lots of density. As a matter of fact, in terms of retail density, many would not put, with the cost of our box, as dense a model as they are. But for us, it works because we have so much market share. That said, our growth is going to lead us beyond these 5 states. So in July of next year, we will begin to open up, for those of you that live or visit, Wawa's in Florida. So that's our next leap. We've looked across the whole country. We did a lot of due diligence, a lot of analytical work, a lot of consumer research, real estate research. And beginning next year, we have a bunch of sites already underway. We will open our doors in July next year around Orlando, and then continue to build out what I would call Wawa South. There's 20 million people that live in the state of Florida. There's 20 million people that represent our 590 stores today. So we think it's a big effort long-term for us, and we're excited about it. So it's a little about stores and numbers, and let's talk about what's really important. So we use a framework from Jim Collins and also from Blue Ocean Strategy, Value Innovation Strategy, somewhat merged, if you will, for how we think about the business. One thing in business that's critical, you have to know what you stand for. More importantly, your customers have to know what you stand for. It helps make decisions. It helps guide your decisions. It's your compass. What we stand for is to simplify our customers' daily lives, period. If there's a way we can do that, that's what it's about. It's not about making coffee, serving a hoagie, but simplifying our customers' daily lives does have this notion of service, which in its purest form is pretty honorable. We'll talk about that later. And what we stand for, if you can see it, I think every company, I think by obligation, has their values, whether it's on their website or in their building and on the wall. These are the values our associates, our 17,000 associates over time have told us what we stand for. And I got to tell you, it's really proud to work for a company. We make decisions this way. We value people. That's probably, while you never rank and prioritize, one of the most important for us at Wawa. And that's outside analytics. But when you have the right person in the right job and you treat them right for the long term, they're going to do the right thing by you, and that's critical for us. So one example of that recently, Hurricane Irene. For the first time in Wawa's history, we closed 462 stores before the hurricane hit. That was voluntary, largely. Some of the about 30 stores in Jersey Coast were forced to close by law, but that was a voluntary decision. We took a $2 million after-tax charge relative to that, lost sales, charges relative to those closures. Why? Because we valued the associates that were in our stores and wanted them to get home to their family to do what they needed to do in the wake of the frenzy of Hurricane Irene. As a private company, and one that lives by its values and one that looks at the long term, that was the right decision. As a public company, I'm not so sure we would have easily made that decision, and that's why Wawa will never be a public company. In addition to that, we have an emotional connection with our customers, at least they tell us we do, and we strive for this. You'd be amazed at all the stuff our customers do and tell us, our 800,000 plus friends on Facebook, and it goes as far as folks serving in the Middle East, getting a hold of us saying, I can't wake up and not have my Wawa coffee every day when it's 120 degrees out. We send them Wawa coffee and all the equipment to make it. Like Harvard Business Review had said, you know, our brand, they compared us to a rock band. They said, how can you have this cult-like following? You're more like a rock band. How's a convenience store cultivate this? You have folks that meet, so 1.5 million people a day go through the doors at Wawa, and some of them actually end up liking each other and get married. We've had weddings in our stores. Anyone interested? It's an emerging business opportunity for us. So this emotional connection isn't easy to do. I'll be the first to tell you, of 1.5 million moments of truth each day, we don't get everyone right. Somehow, when I'm in the store, they usually don't get it right. But we don't get everyone right. And that's okay as long as we identify them and work towards them. And analytics plays a role in that. So, but that's what it's all about, being a part of the community. So I'm going to share some stuff about the 590 stores. We don't talk about our business publicly like that. It's not really about, certainly it's not about me. Certainly it's not about our chairman. It's about the general manager and the associates working in the stores and the connection they make each and every day to the customers and the communities they work in. When you get that right, the numbers begin to add up as a byproduct of that. So that emotional connection is really critical. What does it lead to? So I couldn't get out of here if I didn't boast a little bit. It leads to some pretty big numbers when you add that all up. So we have #1 fuel share in the counties that we're in, 1.5 billion gallons sold. We sell more fuel per source, per site, per store than any marketer in the country for 5 years running, hands down. People said it's a commodity, you can't win at it, and we can win at it. You can make a commodity a better experience, even a commodity. When it comes to C-store share, convenience store trips, 400 million customers. Now, I'm being a little pure to the Philadelphia article that came out that said that number. Frankly, it's probably 480 million, but roughly 1.5 million people a day between our fuel courts and inside our stores, that's just inside, come to Wawa. So pretty significant volume. When you think about customers, that's our #1 vital sign for our business, growth in customer count. So on a per site, per store, per day basis, if we can get more feet, that's a good thing. Customers are telling us, in really a rear view mirror, a lagging indicator, but a good way to say we're doing the right things. We have in the Philadelphia DMA, which is all of South Jersey, Philadelphia counties surrounding, about 72% market share in convenience. Anything north of 30 is, in any business, is fairly significant. Coffee share. 200 million cups brewed. We're number one by far in the markets that we operate in. We are the number 8 national retailer of coffee. We're the only regional player on that list. Wendy's, McDonald's, Dunkin', Starbucks, etc. So on a per unit basis, per store basis, we're selling a tremendous amount more of coffee. Coffee is an important signature product, as you probably could guess. And you'll hear a little bit more in one of my tests of where we're going with coffee and really the whole experience. And share of sandwiches. 80 million built-to-order sandwiches, hoagies. You ever hear the shorty? Thank you. Are you guys Wawa customers? So? Okay. Do you care about analytics or Wawa? That's what is always tough for me to discern in these presentations, the core of the topic or the interest in the company. ATMs, banking friends in here, I'm going to borrow, because I didn't put it up here, but we believe we have the number 1 share of ATM transactions. We'll roughly do 80 million ATM transactions. Why? Who knows why? No surcharge. Why do we do that? What did there's Bank of America folks in here, I'm sorry. What did Bank of America just do that they got a black eye on fees? $5. Why did they do it? You guys are in business school. Why did they do it? Make money. There's these little folks called Dodd-Frank in the Senate, and they came out with something that said these big banks are making too much money. We're going to pass regulations to take revenue away from them. I think I've read 5 billion or 500 billion, some really big number just in Bank of America alone. So they got to figure out a way to make money, and that was a way to make money. I don't think the public liked that, given the state of the economy. And that's not what we would do here either. I've debated it. My friends from Wawa would say, hold on, Chris, you had at one point in your career said we should do that. And I said, you know what, we should look into it. And by looking into it, we were better able to understand all of the back-end processing and all the handshakes and agreements between all the banks and cards to be able to derive more value for Wawa out of that. Not put a tax on the customer, but put a tax on the back end for the benefit and privilege to having PNC to have 1,000 ATMs across our network. All right. Deeply held beliefs. So I got a bunch of stuff here. So we talked about what we stand for. We talked about what's deeply held. There's a few things that are more cultural to Wawa that are more traditions of how we work, and these are a few. One, we are privately held. We will always be privately held. We're half owned by a family that's in a single trust, a third owned by employees, largely in a retirement vehicle called an ESOP. I couldn't be more passionate about a private company. If any of you have the opportunity to work in a large private company, I'd take that any day of the week over a public company. Why? One, you focus on the long term. That's where the fun is. It elevates you out of the weeds to look at strategy. It focuses you on the customer. It doesn't focus you on corners or quarters. It doesn't focus you on analyst calls. It focuses you on what really you're going to business school for, being a business person, not being reciting what you can and can't say to the bankers and the analysts. So I think that's critical. Being privately held aligns interests. So when you can give an ownership stake in a company, and we will continue to grow the ownership stake in our employees in our company, you not only then transcend this engagement. So engagement's a big thing for us. We want our associates engaged. This culture, this valuing people. You break through the emotional connection and add in a financial connection. Now as owners, if you own a house, you're going to invest in it. You're going to paint it. You're going to put on the new roof. You want the value to grow. If you're a renter, you'll keep it clean. You're not going to invest in it. It's not your job. Associates that have an emotional and an ownership connection, I can guarantee you that ownership connection comes through every day when they're at the register, they're in the back office, and that's a really critical competitive advantage. So that'll stay true for Wawa. We are number 50 in private companies on the Forbes latest list. We don't share a lot of numbers, but I would say this year will be close to $8 billion in revenue. So sizable, but again, in total, that's not where it works. Shared ownership. I mentioned employees. That's really the piece of it. It's not about sharing ownership with accredited investors and folks on Wall Street and all that kind of stuff. It's about the folks sitting here all own Wawa stock, and that's critical. And then servant leadership, another notion. And I would tell you that this should be front and center for an institution like Villanova. Dr. Robert Greenleaf talks about this and maybe has really fostered this idea of a leader should, under this premise, be there to serve first. And when you're in the customer service business, that value, that idea has to permeate your whole organization. Serve first, lead second. And that's what it's about. This organization, as I had said earlier, is not about me. I get embarrassed when I come in and see a picture which isn't flattering. I told him if he could find my good side, he'd be the first photographer. But it's not about me. It's not about the CEO or senior leadership. It's about the individual behind the register. We all work in our stores. One of my economics professors is here, goes to the Bryn Mawr store. I worked there last year. Behind making coffee, you get to know how tough it is, how tough customers can be. And that's the challenge. That's where the focus of the business. It's the upside down pyramid. It's not top down. Being a servant leader makes sure that everyone in the organization is focused right on the most important things. Simplifying our customers' daily lives, which us in overhead position means the general manager of the store and the folks that serve the ultimate customers. Servant leadership is really grown up from the company's founders, Quaker background, and has been pervasive throughout. I would not be in the role I'm going to be in if I didn't demonstrate that in part of the culture. If you come into Wawa, our culture is known to be tough to integrate with. I don't agree on every front. This is the one. If you're not going to be a servant leader, if ego is important to you, you wouldn't belong at Wawa. All right. Let's actually jump into why we're here. A couple things. People. So now we're at Wawa. Now we're looking at the journey of building a capability around analytics. I was a part of it. As I told the Wawa folks here, I'm going to take all the credit. I'm not going to take. I was a facilitator in the right place at the right time involved. I'm going to apologize in advance if it seems like I did all this stuff, because I didn't. A lot of the folks in the room here actually had a significant part in making this change. I benefited largely. The company benefited most significantly. But it was about people first. So if you look back, we had analysts. I wouldn't really call them analysts, spread out through the company. A vice president woke up one day and said, I need a report. I'm going to go hire someone called an analyst, and they're going to give me that report I need because accounting's too slow. So we had them all over the place. And what would typically happen in the beginning of every meeting, and probably remember our folks here at Wawa, is the vice presidents from two differing business units and their analysts would argue over whose numbers were right. And then depending on the political influence of the vice presidents, that one would win. And then therefore those numbers were right, and that's how we made decisions. That was a bad way to do business. It grew up from the entrepreneurial spirit. I don't want to put it down completely because it's helped build Wawa to what it is, but we recognized that wasn't the right way to work. So we went around the company and gathered up the analysts. Sounds a lot easier than it was. And said, we need to centralize this group. We need to focus on people. This is a real competency. We need to have a single data set. We need to have a single tool set. We need to develop these individuals and give them training and be able to have one single version of the truth. So people are always most important. A good person in the right seat can break through a bad process or break through bad data and figure things out. So that was first. Well, what this team did is focused on credibility first. So this new team, now that we just robbed people from all the business units are on, they're not my team anymore, right? So we needed to focus on credibility. We blew up the budgeting process. That was a big, visible process and took it from a couple hundred days down to about 80 days with better quality and a better win. So a big win for the organization there. And then we looked across and said, well, we don't just want to be finance folks. So a theme around all of this, and I think why analytics is so important, it's the foundation to make finance individuals, finance in the broadest sense, business people. You got to be business people first. If you're the gatekeeper, if you're just the accountant, if you're the marketer, You gotta have analytical background. You gotta understand what your business wants. We still forced, probably not the wrong word, those analysts to go work right alongside each of the business units, work in the business units, stay connected. Certainly a cultural sort of collaboration and high touch is a Wawa cultural aspect, but this is true at every business. You don't want finance over here, and when I arrive on scene, I'm gonna hear from the finance team. You wanna know and be partnered in finance and marketing, finance and IT, finance and operations. They should be walking in the room together. So a little story, and she's here, but I'll leave her out of it. I was sitting with our marketing team earlier this week, last week maybe, it's been a long week, and we were talking about budgets for next year. And largely through that process, and I said to our food service director, you know, here's your growth for next year. What do you think about that? Is that aggressive? Can you do it? And he looked, he said, I can do it. He goes, I think I can do a little more, but finance wouldn't let me. And he didn't use finance, he used two individuals' names. And I said, finance's job is to stretch, you know, and I'm thinking. And on the surface, I walked away and said, what's finance doing? They are so connected, those two individuals, to that business partner. That's how he didn't even view him as someone else in an analytical role in a centralized, he viewed him as a business partner trying to provide the data and analysis for him together with his team to have the best plan for next year. I thought that was a pretty interesting and relevant recent experience. So we developed this team at Wawa called the Forecasting, Planning, and Analysis, really call them Planning and Analysis, but the common terms FP&A team. So that's the central group of folks now that we had that started to talk the same language, started to use the same data, started to talk to each other, still supporting the business. What do they do? Budgeting, forecasting, long-range planning. If you have any ability in your career to go into a planning and analysis unit in a company, do it. A lot of companies, best practice would be rotational assignments into there because you get to partner so closely with the business, you become a business person. So early on, we had a lot of accountants because there wasn't a major, there wasn't a degree, and some finance degreed individuals in here, and that was okay. My accounting background, I think largely a lot of the folks, you get a basis of understanding of the flow of transactions in your business that allows you to know where the data is and gives you a lot of the processes to be able to reconcile a lot and make sure you know what you're talking about. So what does this team do beyond these processes? Do a lot of business analysts, focus on consumer trends, focus on expenses. How many customers were in this store at this day part and what were they buying and why? Trying to figure out the why is the tough part. A lot of focus each and every day to understand the business. But like I said earlier, the most critical part of this is really the alignment and integration with the business. So you don't want to surprise your business partner. You want to not say no. You want to find yes with them. And that's building bridges to solutions versus just being the gatekeeper. Business analytics, if you can get over that hump, can be extremely powerful across your organization. So we had the people. Now we had to come up with tools. They quickly started to say, we had spreadsheets that maxed out Excel in some of the rows, and literally, I think we probably still do, sadly. So we went out and implemented SAP. I got to tell you, the reason wasn't because of business analytics. We put in an ERP system and replaced an outdated accounting system, and we also put in the retail, our store back office system. We're one of the few retailers in our space, in the food C-store space, that would have this. So leading edge. Expensive, difficult, and worth every penny. What I like to say SAP did is it allowed us to manage the business from before at a 50,000 square foot, 50,000 feet view to a 1 foot view. Let me give you an example. Before, I knew how much inventory was in a store at the end of the week on one day, on Sunday, in total retail dollars. So I knew there was $75,000 sitting in the store, $269 of merchandise inventory. That was about it. Today I could tell you in that store, each article, product, how many there are, how many facings there are of it, what the weighted average cost of each one is, or that group. And then the movements of were they spoiled, was there shrink, Was it used for the store purposes, et cetera? So all of a sudden, we had a whole bunch of data, and we were able to look at a very detailed level of the business. We streamlined reporting a whole bunch. We did not, I would tell you, get into business intelligence at this point, and that'll be one of the things at the end. We've only scraped the surface. Business intelligence and really using that intelligence to do data mining is not something we do today, really, on a large level. So, but we did have a whole bunch of data. A couple wins emerged pretty quickly, and they didn't emerge where I would say we really knew at first when we implemented SAP, this inventory information. Now that I know where everything is in each store in 15-minute increments, and I can now analyze that. So a couple things I would share with you as key wins. One, we were able to reduce spoilage. So we have, in merchandise sales, roughly $2.5 billion. The balance is gas. So if you have $2.5 billion in merchandise, we're in the food business. As a matter of fact, we sell more food in the average Wawa than a Panera Bread's or a McDonald's. So when you're in the food business, you have spoilage. You have product that goes out of code. We had spoilage growing significantly. We were able to reduce spoilage by over $50 million in the first few years of that program, dropping right to the bottom line. Why? Because we knew what we were spoiling, what day parts, what products, what varieties of those products, when, and then what the value of that whole proposition was, and we targeted it. The other, and more recent, is just this week, our auditors, our external auditors, signed off. We're with Deloitte & Touche. We are the first retailer in Deloitte across the country to not do physical inventories. So we've been able to use the data we have to just do cycle counts at store level with store level individuals, and then have an analytical backbone and monitoring process of all of our inventory movements because of the rich data and the competencies we have with analysis now. We saved roughly $750,000 a year by just, if you will, kicking out that firm that used to come in and count all of our stores wall to wall each year. That's where business analysis really starts to pay off for the shareholder. Just a couple examples. There are many, many more. But we did have data overload. We have terabytes, and what I'm trying to figure out, what's above terabyte now? Yes, whatever that byte. We have those many bytes in our data where we track every transaction. So who's been at Wawa today? I know what you bought. We got to talk. Hold on, who's been at Wawa today? A lot more people need to stop on their way home, apparently. They're all waiting, right? That's not good. I have coupons if things go bad. So we had a whole bunch of, we know every transaction now. We have financial data. We have this data warehouse that's huge. I got to tell you, our IT team, the folks that are here, did a wonderful job architecturally setting that up in the system. The business team did a sort of poor job saying, what do we do with it? How do we manage it? What the data definitions? There's too much data. Now people wanted access to it, and you're starting to get back to where? Not a single version of the truth. After we even implemented SAP, we started this exercise I'll talk to you about. It's called Information Enterprise Information Management. We had 12 definitions and 12 versions of what sales were in the company. Not because people were manipulating, it's just their version of sales was, well, I need sales to look like this with this cutoff, or without coupons, or with coupons. This process was necessary, and I do directly congratulate folks that are in the room here because I think we're on the leading edge. And they've shared a lot of this with Gartner and others, but they said, look, our analysts have all this wonderful data, but you're just going to unleash it on them without defining it, without telling them where exactly it is, how to use it, when to use it. So this process is really going through a lot of effort to look at, to organize, design, define all of our data elements. It's not sexy work. It's not that fun. Totally necessary. So now we not only have the level of data we need, but we have definitions across the whole organization of what's where and what it means and how it's defined and how to use it. In addition to that, it also worked with the business. We also had this core team, analysts, IT, and others, work with the business and say, what data do you really need? So early on, we had thrown out thousands of reports from the old best-of-breed systems we launched SAP. This one went after, well, you built the reports in SAP, do you really need them? What data do you need to make decisions every day? What data do your analysts and you need to be able to gyrate and manipulate to analyze the business? And if you don't need it, throw it out. And we threw out a lot. Apparently not enough if we're still have that much, but more work to do. So now you have people, you have tools, and you begin to have a systematic way to look at data. So that's the foundation. So let's talk about a handful of examples around what we did. Where's the fun stuff? I promise this will get fun at some point. We had one more thing to do, though. One of the things at this point is we still couldn't answer what I call the Holy Grail. The question of, is this decision, is this idea, is this investment a good one or bad one? How many people think in business that's something you should know? We need to get the business school. So in business, you win or lose in this hyper-competitive market based on the speed and correctness of your decisions, ideas, and investments. You're going to grow. You got to do things to make your business grow. Analytics is the backbone to all of that, in my opinion. You have to have an idea, but you have to get your idea from where? You analyze your business. You understand your customers in our business model. You understand your business model. You find and connect competitive advantages, and then you test those ideas to see which ones work and fail or succeed really fast. That's business. So we still couldn't figure that out. We had the analytical capabilities to say, here's where trends are, here's where the business model is, here's where consumer needs are, and we connected the dots. But we still couldn't say when we launched a new product, was that working? Was that incremental and good for the shareholder and the customer, or was it not? So we went along a journey because you have this noise. So if I were to implement a new product, pretend this is new, a flavored water, I could have a marketing guy tell me with all kinds of vendor information how many units they're going to sell per store week. And they could put it in a store, and we could track this article, and they could say, look, we're selling 50 units per store per week, here's the profit. If you had a flavored water, does that mean people weren't drinking anything before? No. They were drinking something. Did they bring in new customers into our stores, or did it just trade off the non-flavored water to a flavored water, and did we just lose 10 cents per unit in GP? Could never tell you that. Marketing would tell you they could. We couldn't tell you that. There's too much noise. There's too many variables. There's thousands of variables. Somebody's going to want to stop at Wawa on the ride home, I guarantee it, and you're going to get a phone call, and you're going to go right by because you can't. You can't measure those variables. So we needed to see through the noise. We needed to apply more regression, more statistical analysis. Yes, those courses actually matter. But we couldn't do it with our folks. They skipped those classes. So we have the data. I'm joking. We have the data, and we needed to understand when we made investments, were they good in terms of what? Internal rate of return on investment. We needed to go after that. So what did we do? We looked to the arts and sciences school and said, and joke, but the scientific method. Let's test and learn. So we had a company, Applied Predictive Technology, bring us their methodology, bring us their way of thinking. I got people leaving. I'm going to speed up quickly here, I promise. Or they chose to go and do the 500-word essay instead of listening to the rest of this. So we brought this method. What does it say? It basically says come up with an idea, a hypothesis, put it in a control group versus a test group of stores, and let's figure out whether it works or not. And we can see through the noise using this type of process. What is a test? Pretty easy. You're going to put something, have an event in one group of stores. I'm going to put this flavored water in 50 stores, and I'm going to measure it against 50 control group stores that don't have it and see the difference. Does that sound like a good idea? It sounded like a good idea. Well, hey, our analysts used to do that. Well, what we found out first when you do regression is you have to find the right control stores. Well, we thought the store down the street next to each other Well, that had to be a good control store. That's only a mile down the road. We found that that was totally wrong. Control is built on regression. You have stores that actually will look similar. All I want to tell you is, before this, these stores, two groups, red and blue, acted what? Pretty similar, right? As a matter of fact, for sandwiches, this category, that was a pretty high level of correlation and confidence. We then did something. Point of this story, I don't even know what we did in these stores, but we did something with sandwiches, and what happened? It changed. I can now tell marketing what they did with sandwiches with, in this case, 99% confidence or 1% chance of randomness, that had an effect. That's powerful. That is the Holy Grail. That's being able to say your idea paid off. And oh, by the way, beyond sandwiches, it'll look at the whole site economics to say, well, yeah, it worked here, but let's dig on further to say, did it cannibalize? Did it eat another product that would have been sold, if you will? And so now you had the ability to look at not just the success of this product, but beyond. Very powerful stuff. I'm going to talk to you about some examples of how we used it. Breakfast flatbread. Has anyone ever had one at Wawa? Who raised their hand? You're a liar. We never rolled them out. It could have been a rogue store, though. Or you could have been in the test. I can take that back. So at the time we brought this technology, and more than technology, regression and process, one of the first things we did is we said, let's test it. Let's test if this test stuff works. It was expensive. Our director of planning house said, don't worry about it. It'll work. And why he's in the role, and much better at it than I was when I was in the role, is because it did. First thing we did is marketing was all jammed up. They love this new product. They just developed internally. We do have flatbreads, but they're buffalo chicken and that kind of stuff. They're more dinner lunch. They said, we got a breakfast one. We're ready to go. Let's get it to market. We said, we have this new technology. Let's just test it. And that was foreign, but they went with it. So we put it in stores. We used this to model and put in stores. And what happened? Well, we had some pretty good correlation on the stores. There's the flatbreads. Look, the blue, the test group, we sold a lot of flatbreads. They said, told you, finance, you just cost us a month. We got to get to market. And we said, oh, stop. Now, scale is a problem in these two charts. We were only selling, I'm going to guess, 50, 60 units a store week of the flatbreads. We were selling a lot more of all the else. People were trading off. So the little bit of the blue decline there, people stopped buying the lunch and dinner flatbreads and traded to the breakfast. Was that a good idea? They said, still seems good. Our analyst said, well, but you have a 3-to-1 margin ratio. You make 3 times almost what you make in the lunch and dinner ones than the breakfast ones. It was a really bad idea. Net, our stores lost across the board. Clarity to that decision, they killed this idea, didn't roll it out. The company saved about $2 million to its bottom line versus if we would have rolled out that product that year. That's how analytics can drive the business. We did another one. It's not just about products. You can use this anywhere. If you can imagine a test, you can now measure it. If anyone has any good ones, I'm all ears after. We threw a lot at labor. There was one we threw at labor. We all said, we're business people. We get this business. We can put a lot of stuff. If we put more labor at our checkout in the morning, especially in stores that have tight parking lots where there's not a lot of parking, we'll make more money. Sales will go through the roof. We tested it. Sales didn't move. We're like, yeah, the system doesn't work. That's what we said. Some of us said that. I didn't. But what we did do is we then did blind tests. We have a labor scheduling and allocation tool in our stores. We added 50 hours a store week. That's a lot. 50 hours a store week across our company is $20 million a year in expense. A lot of money. So did it in some stores, and it came back. Now we had the ability to look at the data, and we said, well, on average, that doesn't look like it worked either. We didn't even tell the stores they had the extra labor. We put it in the schedule. They scheduled it. We monitored that, but they used it as they liked. Then our analysts came after still, you can't just rely on tools. You still have to look. You have to have that curiosity. They looked and said, hold on, it did work. It worked for the subset of stores they call urban or within highly populated areas. Why? I don't know. No one really knows. I mean, you could have theories, but it worked. Sales went up dramatically, the blue, versus the control group. We've implemented and rolled this out to all of those like-kind stores across the chain. It's still there today. We weren't asking the question, but we found it. That's how powerful analytics can be. All right, a couple more. So I mentioned this before. These guys are going to be mad I'm sharing this. Yesterday we got approval for tens of millions of dollars from our board, the final step, to roll out espresso-based specialty built-to-order beverages. If Starbucks can do it, Wawa can do it. You're laughing. We're not going to be Starbucks. We're not going to have the third space. You're not going to sit and linger. We want you in and we want you out. And by the way, most of you want that too because you're busy. And that's our model. It's predicated on that. So we think and know, based on consumer research, based on analytics, that customers think we can be credible in that space. We've tested it. I'm not going to tell you numbers, but the blue says that's right. But there's one thing here that's a little different. Don't let analytics get too far in your mind. Don't just look and say, well, the correlation, I have marketing people saying, well, the correlation is 95%, I got a 5% randomness check, I'm up 40. No. You're still business people. This right here would not have paid for our investment needed to roll that out. You'll see a pretty dramatic change in our stores over the next course of the year. But what didn't happen here? What weren't we testing? This was in a small group of stores. This wasn't rolled out chain-wide. This didn't have advertising support behind it. This didn't have 17,000 passionate associates talking with their customers, engaging with that emotional connection to say, buy and drink our espresso. Try it. Let me sample it. There's a business side to everything. Speed of market. We know the research was there that said it could happen. We believe that. We talked to our customers. We tested it. We're close. We're not perfect. We're close. This wouldn't give us a good return. We know we'll triple these results when we roll it out to all stores to get the return we need. You still have to be a business person. That's why even in analytics, you have to work alongside your business partners. You have to understand the mindset of leading the business and what happens each day. You can't be slow. You can't let analytics be a gateway and this happen. You have to jump to the market and use this as a tool to accelerate, not decelerate. That's what we're going to do. Other things we've done. On a slide, last couple things. There's a lot we've done with analytics. We've actually taken in this culture that we call and use engagement. We've done it. We do engagement surveys by each 800 managers. We tie that to their leadership style surveys. We tie that to profitability in their business unit, and we correlate that. And by the way, there's correlation. People that are directive in our culture, people that are what are called pace setters, I'll do it for you because you're not doing it the way I want, versus coaches are less profitable than the other and also drive less engagement. That's where you can start to bring to HR, you can start to bring analytics to people and HR, which people don't think is reasonable. Headroom, I'll skip. Advertising. Our CEO would say from his early career, he was a marketing guy, would say half of advertising is effective, the other half isn't, you just don't know which half. That's pretty true, actually. We've brought regression to advertising as well to say when you do a certain ad in a certain geography, in a certain day part, in a certain way, which of those media drives the most in sales for how long. We don't do that internally, truth be told. That's done by an external consultant. There's a little bit of black magic, I would say, in that. It's not terribly an open box, but I still think it's being able to use analysis to drive the business. We haven't reached maturity at all. How many people have a Wawa loyalty card? All right, we got a few more liars. We don't have one. You're probably talking about your gift card. Thank you. It's good business. We don't have a loyalty program yet. We have tremendously loyal customers. We got to crack that code. Next year, we are going to test loyalty programs, a whole bunch of different versions of them, and get that in your hand. So loyalty is critical for us. The data that comes with now knowing who is buying what. I know people, transactions, if you will, what they were, but I don't know who by name and demographic and shopping patterns is buying what. Tremendous opportunity in retail while it's behind and is trying to catch up in analytics. Price sensitivity. When you walk into any store, whether you know it or not, certain prices mean certain things to you in different ways. Lots of analysis that goes into this, lots of high-priced consultants, but ways that you can transmit a price message to your customers subliminally and also, in fact, there's a lot of analysis there we haven't done. Merchandising and layout, our guy is here, the director that runs that. We still have a lot to do. He tells me, he can tell me direct product profitability by SKU, by facing, by store. I hope he can, because we're going to test that. And then data mining, SAS and other tools like that, we just aren't there yet. So we did not implement business objects for SAP. We still use their warehouse. I think we have a lot more to go to decentralize within that group, empower them to have the tools at their hands. All right, last couple things, and we're done. My role's changed. Analytics affects the CFO's role, frankly, affects all of finance. Finance, as I said earlier, and everyone's got to be focused on the customer in my business. You got to be focused on the bottom line and helping your business units achieve better customer service, more profits. So it's blurred lines with the COO. I've had IT, I've had fuel, I've had HR report to me and work for me, and you start to blur lines. Is a CFO a business person, or is he the gatekeeper and accountant? And the answer is it should be blurred. You want more people focused on the business, not just your operations, not just your marketing folks, but across all, because the power of analytics, the CFO has a much louder voice there. And that's value beyond accounting, closing, audit, etc. Credibility of the CFO, the right CFO with the right team, the right process is critical. It's raised. So no longer is it, well, the business is going to figure everything out at this table. Then a week later, we'll go in and just get the approval from the CFO. He's going to make us do some discounted cash flow. You got to be at the table, in the discussion. Analytics is the tool that enables the CFO and the finance team to be at that table, because you're speaking and helping your business partners. Like I said before, it's got to be balanced decision making. It's not about saying, no, you didn't check this box. No, you didn't get this return. It's about, is this the right thing from a strategic perspective? And that's critical as well. You got to balance your decision making. People, tools, and organizational readiness are key to all of this. Wawa wasn't ready for this early on. Wawa wasn't ready for SAP early on, and had to change a lot in terms of process and maturity in the organization. Mentioned EIM, you got to get your data right. And at the end, again, hitting home that point, analytics is critical to understanding your business and assessing ideas, but strategy and the art of management are equally as critical. You can't always wait for everything to line up. That's all I have. I know it was a lot. One other thought I would share with you is just my journey as CFO and the role I'm going to assume. I'd encourage everyone, especially young in your career, young the first 10 years, take an opportunity to explore outside of your area of expertise. So I had an accounting degree. I was a CPA. Yes, I was with Deloitte. Great experience. To continue to grow as a person and in your career professionally, you really have to identify and stretch yourself into your business units. Work in marketing. Take a lateral move. We do that often at Wawa. You'll take someone who's talented, smart, competent, lives the values, and move them into a different role. Move them outside of finance. Move them outside of marketing. Move them into a different role, because the more you can see as you grow in the organization, the better of a senior leader it can be. I've had the opportunity to work in operations, even a financial role, albeit in operations, with HR, with IT. And all of that has really helped me round out my perspective on the business, always along the way relying on analytics, relying on people, fitting in the culture. So thank you very much for entertaining me.
Very much, Chris. We do have time for some questions.
I only left a minute, if you didn't notice.
Any thoughts about using the smartphone technology as the entry point for your data analytics? It seems like a natural one. My son wants to know when monsters have price.
2 for 2 for I don't know, 2 for 4, something like that. All right, we'll get them on the monster. Smartphones. So you're saying using smartphones just to capture that information? So
Their buy, but also to push.
yeah, so we are working on that. We've put our mobility strategy that falls under with our loyalty strategy that we're testing. We have some infrastructure work at the point of sale that we have to get in place first, honestly. So we have to, we're looking at near field communication. We're looking at, Google Wallet, and using it as a form of tender and also as a form of loyalty, and trying to push as well as pull information. We had a pilot early on, a company called GoMobo that was online and text ordering. about 5 years ago, I'd say now. I think we're a little ahead of the curve, and it just didn't have the consumer acceptance, so we're going back to all of that, given that it's moved so quickly. So don't have it yet, it's on its way. Yes?
Can you share how you're working with your manufacturing partners to drive insights and analytics?
Manufacturing partners. So I don't think we do a great job of sharing data outside the four walls of Wawa, if you will, but we do that. So our supply chain, we have forecasting and replenishment automated at store level. We share that data and do projections upstream into our supply chain and manufacture some of our food products. And as well, I think we do that on cigarettes as well, which is significant. So we give some of data is really as far as it goes. We share data with some of our manufacturers to allow them for production schedule at most. We also share with other vendors data that really goes after profitability, and real estate in our store is expensive and valuable. So if you want a space, you have to prove to us that you have a velocity and a profit per unit that is valuable to us, and we'll use that to go after it.
First, I want to give you a personal shout out for adding jalapenos to the menu on these shorty lists.
All right. All right. A note for jalapenos.
My question has to do with, especially some of the EMBA students here, we learned about systems thinking. It's one of the differentiators of our program. You touched on it. I actually had the pleasure of meeting your Chief Marketing Officer, Carol Jensen, last week.
Oh yeah, she warned me you would ask me a tough question.
She wouldn't give me a tough question. I tried to get one from her. But you touched on it too. Has your sort of systems thinking process happened by accident or by design, where you do seem to get people into different roles? And for instance, Carol is now the Chief Marketing Officer, but she used to be in HR.
Mm-hmm.
That gave her a tremendous perspective. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
When you say systems, I'm thinking IT, but I don't think you're going
Sure.
IT. You're talking more of
A little bit more about
people,
how,
organization.
Very succinctly, the traditional business model is silos.
Yeah. Okay, sure. Sure.
But she has said that in recent years, you've really shifted the management team around where everybody has experience in all the other different roles. And that really is systems thinking. That is where everybody's sort of on the same page
Yeah.
in different roles.
Yeah, that's really a hallmark. At the senior levels, we're trying to blow that down into the manager levels and staff levels. That happened 2 decades ago, and the then CEO, now chairman, moved our whole management committee around into different slots. Actually, our current CEO, Howard Stokel, was an HR guy by trade, came into Wawa as HR, and a year later was in marketing. Carol Jensen as well. So we was in HR, now in marketing. I've had HR report to me, IT, as well as fuel, et cetera. That is more of what I believe a cultural phenomenon for us and how we manage talent, which we brought a lot of process to, and that is you look for competencies, and at the more senior level, it's about leadership and cultural fit, and you can rotate individuals through the senior ranks with great success. We've proven that time and time again. We're trying, like I said, to have our talent management processes at the manager level also do that. Frankly, it's a little easier at the lower levels, although there's a technical knowledge base you need to move into a different area. We think we can train that and rotate people, and it'll make better leaders long term. So we have done that quite a bit across the company.
Due to the investment that was required to go to SAP and the challenges that you had starting to make that decision, what did it take from a leadership standpoint for the organization to move that direction?
To move that direction, yeah, that was that was tough. That was tough because it's hard. We forced ourselves into thinking of we were going to make different decisions. We were going to eliminate processes, streamline processes. We went after a real business case. I think the power in that isn't just to say, well, look board, look management, there's a 15% return. It's to help steer your direction as you implement a project. So we knew decision-making was going to get faster. We knew certain things around inventory would be available to us to reduce costs. So it took a long time to socialize that idea. The first time we brought in an idea relative to something like SAP was just part of our store accounting systems. And it was a fourth of the cost that the eventual system implementation was. We got laughed out of the management committee at that point in time. So it takes a long time for people to understand. We got to the point, another burning platform was, the system we had in place from an accounting perspective, and even our back office and our stores, was failing, unsupported, and we had to do something. So it was the better choice to move forward. But you have to go after an IRR. There has to be business value at the end of the day.
Do you see this growing to a core competency?
Oh, and what is that?
As far as something that your business is focused more on, that's core to the
And that is, well,
business analytics in itself.
I'd love to say yes. I just don't think we're there yet. I think we have great insights into the business. I think the business as a whole has aligned itself to making decisions supported by facts and data and critical thinking, but we have a ways to go, I'd say, even vis-a-vis our retail competitors.
Do you have your store associates and managers using analytics as the first user and then passing up information, or they receive it from your analysis?
They receive it. So that question, we talked about it at a little lunch earlier. One of our goals beyond analytics, we want our GMs out of our back rooms dealing with customers. That's have to face the customer. So the more we try to, we don't have Outlook, we don't have email for our stores. We have some rudimentary, crude thing that most of us don't know how to use. So, and that's not by just expense, but we want folks focused. That said, what we've done with some of this is we've pushed some data through portals and other information to the stores that allow them to have a more visible understanding, detailed level. So I now know that product X, I'm making $1.23 in direct product profitability versus the other variety, I'm only making $1. If I can only put one on, I want to put the one on that can make more money and the customers want. So we provided them more information. I don't want analysts in our stores. I want customer service focus in our stores. So
One last question.
you had Wawa coffee, so I'll.
You do a lot of test and control experiments. Do you ever do multi-factor experiments where you're testing more than one dimension? Like because you do sandwich, the size of the sandwich will make a difference, the cost of the sandwich, compared to just a control sandwich.
Yes, we run tests that I would say are the events are broader than just one item.
One dimension.
So, frankly, with the jalapenos, we tested that. We put in jalapenos, baby spinach, and cucumbers. And in other stores, we put in a different way to make the hoagie along with the ingredients and tested them in 2 control groups. As long as the control and test group, you can read the data and the way that we have our methodology set up, you can put some tests together, but you just have to have that control group to read the
And
data.
you don't have SAS yet to do the actual analytics. How do you?
We do not have SAS, we do not have business objects, the SAP, and so we actually use the software that we do our test and learn methodology from, has some reporting capabilities and analytical capabilities. It's fairly rudimentary compared to those, so we'll be on that journey sooner than later. Everyone, thank you for being here. Appreciate it.